Welcome back to She's Got Game. On this week's episode, I'm sitting down with GB rower Vwairé. She is one of the funniest guests I've had on to date. Her one-liners are just insane. She's one of the first black women to be on the GB rowing team, and we have never had a black athlete represent Team GB at the Olympic Games. Vwairé is out there to change that. She talks all about what it takes to break down barriers, how she had to save up £10,000 at just 18 years old, working 3 jobs to buy her first boat. She is an inspiration to us all. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Vwairé, welcome to She's Got Game.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Okay, quick fire. Do you prefer training on the erg or the water?
The erg, no question.
Really?
Yeah. The water can miss me anytime, any day. I am an indoor girly, away from the elements.
So I find this fascinating because with an erg, it's very monotonous, which I think is quite therapeutic as well. What is it about an erg that you love?
I think definitely along those lines. I like doing the same thing again and again and again, and I think you'd find that with rowers we're a bit boring sometimes. But there's also just that sense of you can really be in tune with your body, whereas on the water, you obviously have the boat, you have the blades, you have what the wind's doing, if it's raining, if it's cold, if it's hot. There's so many other factors. So I feel like your body tends to be the last thing you think about. So yeah, having that peace and quiet on the erg is like my favorite thing, just like a blissful ignorance, back and forth, same and same again.
The noise I find really relaxing.
Yeah, the fan, and like the more you get into it and the more nerdy you get about it, you know the right sound too, so you just constantly search for that sound. So yeah, I think the erg will always be my first love and have a special place in my heart for those reasons.
Do you train with or without earphones?
Oh, I could do a bit of both. I definitely am labelled a bit of a weirdo because sometimes I will wear my noise cancelling earphones and just be playing brown noise, just like straight up white noise, brown noise, just hum, you know, because I find it helps me think about nothing, and you perform your best when you're actually not thinking about anything. So yeah, but I'm not one to say no to a good playlist. Like some good vibes will get me going.
What are your top 3 pre-race songs?
So I've really been into Little Sims recently, and her song Lion is like just every single lyric I try and live up to. She speaks about being like an iconic black queen and like a Nigerian heritage, and yeah, I can relate to all of that, so that definitely gets me hyped. And then I would say Kanye Black Skinhead is definitely like up there. It is, I know, you know, separate the art from the artist, but every single athlete or every person that has had to dig deep knows that soundtrack. That will get you there. And then I think third would have to be something Doechii. She's been up and coming recently. Pro Freak is, yeah, one of my favorites because it just gives that like bad bee vibe and gets me feeling myself. And I'm like, I can do everything I want, you know?
Let's go. I love that. Is such a good playlist. I'm going to create it. We're going to label it the Vwairé playlist. What is the most chaotic moment during a regatta?
So this question definitely tickles me because, as I said, rowing can be a bit boring. But yeah, there was one that I saw where someone had like snapped their blade right as they were pushing off for a race, and that was a bit hectic because you're like, not only is that about 600 quid down the drain, but how on earth are you going to go race? But yeah, more recently this season, it's quite a common fact that most people wouldn't know. But when you get nervous and you got to go to the loo, there's not really much space to do that when you're rowing, especially because we'll boat about an hour to 40 minutes before the actual race and you want to stay hydrated. So yeah, I saw one of my competitors about 5 minutes before the race roll call just pop herself out the boat and let it all go. And I was like, this is really difficult for me to lock in right now and focus on, you know, absolutely annihilating you when I can see your butt. But, you know, that was the most curious, I don't know if I'd say chaotic, but weird energy for sure.
I mean, do your thing. If you have to go, you've got to go.
Mother Nature, am I right? So yeah, that was weird.
What would you say is the best rowing venue you've ever competed at?
I think Lake Vwairé will always have a special place in my heart. It was the first regatta that I was able to represent GB, and, you know, walking out with a bronze was pretty special, and my whole family came down, and yeah, it's just so scenic and picturesque as well.
That's amazing. If you could row with anyone in a double, dead or alive, who would it be?
I think my mum, for just the bants, to be honest. I can't even begin to imagine how she would react to such a weird movement. I think she obviously watches me row a lot, and, you know, she does her thing. She loves her long walks, but I think rowing would really be an interesting process for her to understand how on earth I managed to do this day in, day out. I think, yeah, it would really tickle me and be hilarious.
Which element of it do you think would shock her the most?
Probably how you have to balance the boat with just your feet. I think you don't realize how unstable it can be, and we call it capsizing. So it's very easy to capsize, and to this day, us pros, all it takes is one wrong stroke and you're in. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge that lots of people don't anticipate.
That's so funny, because when I think of capsizing, I think of a real novice rower.
Oh, please.
Like myself. If I was in the boat, I'd probably be out within 5 seconds.
Don't you worry, I'm there with you, girl.
Really?
I'm there with you. I am, especially in the single, when you have to solely rely on your own capabilities. You know, it can be dangerous.
Do you find it easier to find your rhythm in a single or in a double?
Oh, it really depends. I think I personally definitely prefer a double, because I just love being able to sit behind someone, and if you've got a good rhythm, I'm there with you every stroke, every step of the way. But there are definitely some doubles that just don't work. So when you have completely different rowing styles, I think I would rather be in my single, just chugging away, doing what I know how to do.
Finding your flow.
Yeah, yeah.
At which point in the 2K does it get really dark for you?
Oh, I would say just before the halfway, just before the K, when you're processing, ouch, this kind of hurts now, but there's still more than halfway to go. And you just kind of have to talk yourself off the ledge, and you're like, you can do this, process driven, just one stroke at a time. But yeah, you feel the burn pretty early on.
I remember, so I did a tiny bit of rowing on water when I was probably 18. The reason I did it, this is my mum through and through. She was like, right, you need to find a nice boyfriend.
Of course.
I don't like rugby players, but I like rowers. I was like, right. So she signed me up to the rowing club. Does she know any rowers? No, she does not. This was just a complete,
she said,
like,
find yourself a tall, fit man.
She did.
And
she said, find
be on
yourself
your
an
way.
athlete. Yeah.
I love that for her.
But I have this thing called Reynards. Have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a summer girl.
Yeah.
I am not getting in a boat in winter. That's not happening. But I really remember the coach saying rowing is such a leg dominant exercise.
Yeah.
And people don't think about that, do
No,
they?
no. And I think we don't help ourselves with our bolder shoulders, and, you know, like, the physique definitely speaks for itself, but there is a huge element of legs. And if you're weak in the legs, you're going to struggle. It's a long way. It is an endurance sport. So yeah, you have to be powerful, but also fit.
I just think it's amazing. I really remember her saying, she's like, if you can't feel this in your glutes, you are rowing
Something's wrong.
incorrectly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's one thing people don't expect about you?
The fact that I'm scared of heights. I'm deathly scared of heights. You will never see me on a hot air balloon, skydiving, all of that nonsense. Keep it to yourselves, because what the heck? Like, I do not understand how people just willingly go ziplining and all that. Oh, no, too far.
I think that's a really valid fear.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most underrated thing about rowing?
Just as you were saying, like, it's a full body sport. I think it definitely can be utilized for a lot of things. If you want to get more powerful or you want to build endurance, it's a great exercise for your whole entire body. And yeah, more people should be utilizing it.
What is the most overrated thing about rowing?
I would say, like, the whole rowing stigma of like hoity-toity, posh, and yeah, it definitely is a bit of an outdated vibe, I would say. And yeah, we got to keep on moving with the times.
I think that's a really important point to talk about, because we are going to come on to more of this later, but there is this kind of exclusive element to rowing. What is it actually like being in the rowing community? How would you describe it?
I would say that grassroots sport, like most, the diversity is, you know, very inclusive. I think just getting people involved in the sport has definitely been a huge barrier in the past. But I think as, you know, a rowing body and a rowing community, we're doing a lot better at opening facilities for young people or anyone, any age, any ability to come down and just try the sport. So that's exciting to see. But I think, like anything, there's a natural drop-off as the barriers grow, you know, being able to have frequent access to the water or even the financial ability to afford blades, a boat. There's so many elements to it that create exclusivity as the sport progresses and as it becomes more demanding. So yeah, I think like anything, you find that top end is just not where it should be in terms of diversity.
What is one item you always have in your kit bag?
My asthma pump. I cannot breathe. These lungs are on like life assist with my inhalers. Honestly, you don't want to see it.
But that's insane that you are such a phenomenal athlete. And people don't think about that, I don't think.
Honestly, I got the whole triple threat. Thanks, Mum. Yeah, the triple threat of allergies, asthma, and eczema. So, yeah, the doctors have had a fun one with me every other day. Yeah, this is another issue. Yeah, this is another problem. So,
the fact that you've managed to manage that and do what you're doing, I just think is incredible.
Thank you.
Where did you grow up and what was childhood like for you?
I grew up in London, South London, Brixton. And yeah, childhood was great. I think there was a huge like community element. So I'm Nigerian, and yeah, there was not a day that my parents let me forget that. And I appreciate that so much now. So yeah, I came from quite a big family and everyone was family. You know, the moment that you become friends with someone, they're part of your family instantly, and your mum's always cooking for them and asking about them and whatnot. So that sense really was instilled in me from such a young age, and I'm so grateful for that.
And do you think that's a reason as to why community is so important to you now?
100%, without a doubt. I think it takes a village, and there's so many aspects of life where there's solitude and loneliness, especially in this day and age. I think people are finding it easier to isolate themselves. So being able to find your community can be really, really difficult, especially in high performance sport or high pressure environments. So it will stay a priority for sure.
Forever. Who or what would you say were some of the biggest influences in your early years growing up?
Yeah, I think my family in general, we definitely had a strong like matriarchal vibe. You would always see like it was the aunties, the mums, the grandmas that were getting everyone ready for school and cooking and, you know, doing all of these things that I think can definitely be perceived as, you know, like a menial task. But to me, it was highlighted how important those things were, especially by, you know, even the men in the family, and just sort of that respect for how powerful and strong women are is something that just showed me what I had scope to be. And, you know, it told me who I am from a very young age. I'm not a weak woman, you know, seeing the strong women that I came from, it just gave me the confidence that I needed.
I think this is so cool that you had that, and you had those role models around you, men and women, telling you that you're strong and that you can go and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
What were some of the other values, would you say, that the community instilled in you, other than community and being strong as a woman and being able to go and do whatever you want to do? Were there any other values that you gained from your childhood that still really stick with you today?
I think discipline was a huge one. It was something that I was taught in a multitude of ways. I was quite overweight when I was growing up, and just like a bit of a couch potato. I think living in London will do that to you sometimes. So yeah, I think having to lose a substantial amount of weight and just be the one to hold myself accountable was very challenging. And I think that is the main reason that I'm able to continue and stay self-motivated and self-disciplined, because yeah, it's not easy.
What was it like growing up and feeling like you were overweight? Because this is something that I don't think people talk about enough as to how it impacts children. We talk a lot about adults wanting to lose weight, but how did that affect you as a child?
It was definitely isolating. I felt like no one really understood what I was going through, and it was sort of just as simple as say, hey, lose weight, hey, go to the gym, yada yada. But I think what people didn't appreciate is I didn't want to be overweight. That wasn't the choice I was making. And especially when you're that young and you see that all your friends get to go and play the sports and all your friends like have crushes and all these things that come with being on the thinner side, like I'm not choosing to live this lifestyle and forgo all of those things. So yeah, I think being so young and so misunderstood, it was definitely a huge challenge, and it made me feel less than at the best of times and just feel like a lot of my value came from my body with the way it was so constantly spoken about. But yeah, in losing the weight, that came with a new world of like navigation, because you do get treated differently, and being almost honored and congratulated for losing weight, and people don't even ask you how you've done it, like you know that's so toxic, and it sort of feeds into this idea of like, the more I lose, the more valuable I become. The more I lose, the prettier I am, the smarter I am, the more people will like me. And yeah, that definitely got myself down this like rabbit hole of like borderline orthorexia, just seeing all like this propaganda of like how to be the skinniest mini in the world, which is never going to be me. Like look at the size of me, it's never going to happen. So yeah, I'm really glad that I was able to navigate my way out of that, and it really was through sport and learning that my body was so much more than something for people to look at.
Yeah, I had a similar thing with, I did become very orthorexic at a point. But what would you say to people who tend to congratulate others for losing weight? What would you say to them in terms of how they can take a beat, pause? What would be a better thing to say to someone they've noticed a drastic change in?
I think that unless you know someone's intentions, just do not comment on people's bodies. It's not, I don't know, I think it's like commenting on someone's shoe size. Congratulations, like you shrunk down to a size 7. It's just not really anyone's space, and it really shouldn't be a topic of conversation. And I think, it's great with the body positivity movement, and I think women are definitely becoming more aware that there is beauty in so many different body types. However, I'm also subscribed to the notion of just like body neutrality. Like you don't have to be any type of way to be beautiful. Like your body doesn't need to be beautiful. You can just exist and be a person with value and with worth beyond what your body looks like. So yeah, I would say unless it's someone that's close to you and they've been working healthily towards losing weight, maybe you can say, hey, good job. Like I see what you're doing and it's working. Or even if it's they're working healthily towards gaining weight, good job. I see you, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. But ultimately, if you are not in that circle, if that's not something that's been disclosed to you, zip it.
Say nothing.
Yeah.
I think it's really good advice. Yeah. So when did you get to the point where you made that switch where you then started to have a really healthy relationship with your body and what it could do rather than what it looked like?
It definitely was a huge transition. And I feel like it's a journey that I'm still on, to be completely honest. Joining sport made me realize that, whoa, I'm pretty good at something, and like I don't have to be any different, which was really rewarding. But I'm aware that not most people get to be that lucky. So I think even as I'm going through my journey, I think about some of my best performances, and there are those silly thoughts that go, oh, like you were really lean then, like that was your best ever XYZ, but I kind of have to mute them out, and I kind of have to remind myself, hey, we haven't even touched, the surface of what could be your best. If your best is 5 kilos heavier, let's explore that, And I think as well, just becoming more in tune with my body and listening, that was a huge thing that I struggled with. And yeah, to some degree still struggle with, like listening to my body when I need to rest, listening to my body when I need to eat more, listening to my body when I need to take a session easy. And I think, that's the double-edged sword of discipline. Like you just want to be a workhorse, you just want to stay on track. But having a good relationship with your body takes everything, and it's a journey that I'll always be on. I've just accepted that.
I think a lot of people, more so perhaps women, but men too, are exactly the same. As an athlete, how do you find the process of peaking? And then sometimes not being in an quote unquote off season, but in a season where perhaps you do gain and you put on muscle and you're looking to gain strength and power. And then naturally, as you get towards competition, you know, you build up the intensity. How do you find that wave and that flow with, right, we're peaking and we're pushing, okay, now we're focusing on other elements of the sport?
I think before I definitely used to like resent the winter season because you would have to gain muscle and you definitely wouldn't be getting away with capsizing in minus 6 degree weather with no meat on your bones. Honestly, it might just kill you. So yeah, it wasn't my favorite thing, but I think the moment I actually understood physiologically the benefits, and I mean, we say like seasonally, but even monthly, like around my cycle and stuff, being able to put away a few extra calories just to make sure that everything's running well, I'm seeing the benefit in that. And it has taken time, and it has taken almost like proof in the pudding, you know, like just trusting the process, which is quite scary to do, especially at the beginning of your career. But yeah, I think I just sort of try and shift my focus and be like, okay, this is the winter season. How strong can I get? Because I'm going to need that in the summer, you know, and likewise in the summer with the intensity, I'm like, this is, you know, the bread and butter. This is what you get excited for. You're going to need this for the racing. So just shifting that goal and that focus and making it in tune with the seasonality of life, really.
How did you first discover rowing?
It was so random, to be honest. I think whenever I tell the story, I chuckle a little bit because, yeah, so I had finally lost a bunch of weight and I went to sixth form, and where I went to, they had so many sports on offer, and I was sort of scratching my head. I was like, oh, I don't really have anything to write for my personal statement, and I have done bugger all, like my whole life, like no team sports, no clubs, nothing. So I joined everything. I joined hockey, athletics, netball, and rowing. And yeah, I mostly joined rowing just because one of my best friends was like, that boy's really cute. Have the same idea as your mum.
It's a boy thing. What
exactly.
is this about?
And I was like, hey, if you want him, I'll help, I guess. That is literally how I started rowing, because my best friend thought some boy was cute.
Some guy. That is so good. What was it about rowing that drew you to that sport rather than the other three you were also doing?
Oh God, I was just awful at the rest. It
Really?
was purely like self-selection. Oh, you did not want to see me in any form of like coordinated sport. Getting a ball involved is criminal. Criminal. I wish I was joking. So yeah, it sort of just dwindled itself down to say the least. And I think, yeah, as I said, the erg will always be my first love. It was just nice to be able to be good at something for the first time in my life. Like I felt like, oh, like this is mine to be good at. You know, whenever you're good at school, it almost feels like your parents, you know, and there was just nothing that I had chosen and I was actually able to gain success from. So yeah.
Do you remember what the first time on water was like for you?
Oh God.
How many times did you capsize?
Oh goodness, like too many. I don't even think I was able to get one stroke in. It was the most foreign feeling ever because I just didn't know what to expect, and all I had been doing was the erg. So I was like, I am too good. Like I went in ego sky high. All right, I was like, just give me the damn boat. Let me go. You know, let me row myself to the Olympics right now because I'm killing it. But boy, oh boy, I was humbled instantly.
At what moment did you then realise that you didn't just want to pursue it as a hobby, but you wanted to make it more of a serious career?
It's weird because I feel like I still perceive it as a hobby, but yeah, it's definitely in the more recent years when I've been thinking about career prospects, and you know, you finish uni, you graduate, you see your friends moving on to their grad jobs, and I just stick around rowing. I'm like, it's good enough, it works for me. But yeah, more recently I feel like there's been a fierce determination to do something with it. And like we discussed with the rowing community, how the drop-off is, you know, just being that one person and being that representation that so many people need also adds like that want and that need and that thirst to continue. So yeah, it's like just an amalgamation of things, really. Like, there's so many aspects to it that I'm like, yeah, this is for me, this is where I belong, and keep on keeping on.
It's just something that's really developed in the world of athletes, is that they now have a brand, and you have such a voice with social media these days. What are you looking to do with your voice in the sport?
I think just really open that conversation. It's definitely an interesting topic, especially in a sport as traditional as rowing. You know, why don't we have more people of colour, you know, getting involved? Why don't we have more people of colour getting to the very top? What is that obstacle? What is that barrier? And how can we take it down? How can we make things more accessible? Because ultimately, when I wear, you know, my kit and I go and represent Great Britain, there is an immense sense of pride. Like, I could not be more proud of, you know, what my team has achieved and, you know, everything that I've been working towards, and just to be able to represent my country. So I would like to think that the country would be just as proud to represent the diversity that it has to offer, you know? So I think, yeah, that's definitely the main goal in this pursuit. Obviously, it would be nice to win things, but, you know, beyond that, it's just starting that conversation so we can start putting things into action.
And what would you say the barriers currently are? And have you noticed them coming down in the last few years?
For myself, I think it differs for everyone. I, to be honest, didn't really even know rowing was a sport. I didn't realise it was an Olympic sport, even though it's one of the oldest ones. So yeah, just having it be something that is seen in communities and in areas that aren't as exclusive. You know, I think the stereotype is that, you know, you go to private schools and then Oxbridge, and those are quite exclusive communities, you know. So for myself, it was just absolutely having no idea. And then as things have progressed, the financial aspect has become very, very difficult. And, you know, I found myself having to work 3 jobs in order to have enough money to buy my own boat. And, you know, that's just one of the first steps. Beyond performance, I'm there straining myself left, right and centre to be able to keep up. So yeah, but I'm actually working with this startup company, Vwairé, that is looking to address those sorts of issues for elite athletes and sort of take down one of those huge barriers that we see in sport today. And yes, it's definitely something that I see changing in the next few years with that.
That's amazing. I mean, you've touched on it briefly already in terms of some of the challenges that you faced when you were getting into the sport, with working 3 jobs to buy your own boat, which is incredible. Were there any other challenges that you found you faced?
Yeah, I think naturally, like any person of colour in a new space, it's definitely a hard balance between, okay, having empathy and understanding about the fact that this is probably the first time I'm going to be around people that genuinely haven't had the luxury of being around people of colour, and, you know, this is probably the closest they've ever been to being able to have difficult conversations or ask questions that I may deem as silly, because I'm like, come on guys, like what? But there's a genuine curiosity. So there's that aspect of feeling, you know, like I'm a teacher, but then trying to balance it with the fact that I am here to perform, you know, like no one else has to answer these stupid questions. And yeah, there's a time and a place, and sometimes people get it wrong, but yeah, there's definitely a huge sense of empathy there, that it's just curiosity, and someone's got to answer those questions. So I'd rather it come from a reliable source than, you know, somewhere else. But on the flip side, there's also been a lot of internal challenges that I've had to overcome as the only black woman, the only black person in the spaces, because I think there's a lot of stereotypes about being an angry black woman and, you know, people being fearful and all of those elements. I'm not stupid. I'm very aware that it can come across in a wrong way, and it's been difficult when you're an athlete and like when you need aggression, when you need to instill fear, when you need to be relentless. And it's something that I'm great at doing. Like, don't get me wrong, I love it. And yeah, it's been difficult to give myself the grace to channel that energy without the fear of judgment or without the fear that it would make other people uncomfortable.
Have you ever felt the pressure that you've needed to dampen any parts of your personality just to break the stereotype?
100%. And I think, once again, it's only natural, like when you are sort of navigating the space alone as well. And there's no script for it. Like if it had been done before, then that would be a different story. But yeah, I think for me, a lot of the dampening came from that aggressive side and just like feeling like I didn't have the luxury or grace to do so because it may be interpreted on a deeper level than necessary.
Have you been able to reignite that fire and bring that aggressiveness back into the sport now?
Yeah, for sure. I did a lot of work actually with my sports psychiatrist, and I think most athletes do this. They just sort of create this alter ego, and mine is called Vwairé, and she's like, let Vwairé take all the heat for it. Okay, if they hate it, they hate it, but she gets it done. So that has definitely helped unlock a whole new level for my performance.
I think this is just such an interesting topic for me because this whole thing of women should not be aggressive, or if God forbid a woman is powerful and in another sport, for example, tennis comes to mind, and a woman does a smash, why does she be so aggressive with that?
And you're like, because this is the name of the game,
She's
honey.
an athlete.
This is the name of the game. I would love to see anyone go out there and even attempt to, be 1/10 as great without that fire and without that aggression. And like, when you think about being an athlete, you really have to access such deep, complex parts of yourself to push yourself to being the best. If it was that easy, everyone would do it. You have to take that next step and you have to take that next level and just be crazy enough to own it, really, fearlessly.
And also, I think a lot of their perceptions of any of this, angry black women is coming from their own. It's not the reality of the situation. So let your performance do the talking.
Yeah, and the irony is, I do get a lot of feedback from people that meet me for the first time. They're like, "Wow, like I just didn't expect you to be so like soft and like you just wouldn't hurt a fly." And lots of my friends would call me shy and stuff like that, and just less outspoken. And I'm like, this is who I am. Like, and yeah, it's only natural that humans have like prejudice and just preconceptions, but it's nice to be able to dismantle them.
What changes do you think need to be made in the rowing world to diversify it even further?
I think accessibility is a huge part, and we've definitely started with that, and I feel like it's becoming, more natural and more ingrained into the community as opposed to having a one-off open day free for all. I think it's something that is actively being worked towards and sought out for, but I think as things progress and as things get more difficult and more high stress, that financial barrier is a massive element. Like it's not normal for an 18-year-old to have a spare 10K,
Is that how much it costs?
Yeah, for a boat. Exactly.
Wow.
Girl, I was working my booty off. I was literally like running up and down to scrape together those pennies. But yeah, that's not normal.
No.
But I think because of the sort of stigma around the sport and the stereotype around the sport, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you know what I mean? You end up just leaving it to the people that do have that privilege, and you end up leaving it to the people that do fall in line with those stereotypes. So yeah, I think a massive way to overcome that is just by providing that support beyond the grassroots and beyond the tester days and whatnot. So yeah.
How do they do that? Because if a boat costs 10K, how can they bring in some more funding and support, or even like a rental system so that people do have more access? Do you have any ideas on that?
Well, there's definitely different avenues. Like there are people that you can like rent boats from and whatnot. And I know that if you are a promising athlete, you potentially have the scope to reach out to some companies and see, hey, can I use one of like your demo boats and stuff for this trial or this race, and see how it goes. But I was actually really fortunate to be part of a program. At the time it was called World Class Start, but now it's called like Performance Development Academies, and it's basically an academy where people with a lot of potential and promise, but also no rowing ability whatsoever, are brought in, and they're part of this community and they're part of this group where they're taught the skills and, they're trained like high performance athletes, and it sort of creates this system where you're able to put one foot in front of the other with that support. So yeah, and with that, they were able to provide me a boat for a long time. And yeah, that definitely changed the game for me. But I think what made it work and what made it so successful for me was the fact that I had an incredible coach. You know, I think I was definitely lucky to be, you know, supported by such an incredible woman who, once again, told me exactly who I was. She was not afraid to give me the confidence I needed and let me know that, you know, we're working with a lot here. So yeah, with that sort of framework, I think that's the reason I was able to excel despite the barriers.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility as a visible figure in the sport?
Yeah, for sure. I think I definitely have had a few people reach out to me and, you know, share what it means for them to be able to see a person that looks like them in this space. And, you know, that is really powerful. And I think at the start, that was very daunting. And I did not want to be responsible for anyone's hopes and dreams. I did not want anything to do with it, because I was like, I'm just me. Like, I have nothing to offer. I'm literally just Vwairé. But now I'm seeing that there is a huge power in it and someone has to do it. Like, you know, the fact that we're in 2025 and we're yet to see, you know, a Black GB athlete represent rowing for the Olympics, you know, we've got some work to do. So yeah, now I sort of just take it as a blessing, really. And I think it just goes back to why I feel like this is the only career for me, because I've been gifted with an incredible support system, and I would be foolish to not use it to continue, you know?
What advice would you give younger girls, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds, who are looking to get into rowing?
I think just the fact that you can. You don't need anyone to tell you you can. Like, know that you can if you want to. There's space for you. And yeah, I'm not going to undermine the fact that it is very daunting and there are challenges and obstacles that your peers might not have to overcome. But there's more than enough space for you. And the sport needs you. I think that's a huge thing as well. I think people are thinking it's from a selfish pursuit that, oh, I want more diversity and I want to be able to see, you know, more people of colour. But the sport needs you. We need change. We need difference. Every individual brings something that another person just could never, you know? And I think, especially in women's sport, it is so exciting seeing how incredible we are and seeing how we are constantly shattering the barriers and constantly moving the goalposts. Like, we are creating history right now, and sport needs you in order to do that.
And then you alluded to your coach earlier. What are some of the biggest lessons she's helped you learn about yourself and that have then gone on to allow you to perform in the way that you have?
Oh gosh, my coach Helen Brown, she deserves a Nobel
moment.
Peace Prize at this point. What this woman has taught me, the list is endless. Yeah, I think, as I said, like when I was younger, there was a lot of like things that I had to navigate, losing weight and whatnot, and then finding myself in sport and sort of just never seeing that as an avenue for myself. So she really built me from the ground up. And I think the biggest thing she taught me was that no one can tell me who I am. You know, like, I write my own story. I create my own destiny, essentially. And, you know, despite the fact that I felt alone, she never made me feel like I was fighting that battle alone. You know, she would be the first person to correct people on how to say my name. And, you know, she would be the first person to just make sure that everything was being done like to the highest degree, to the highest standard, and she would not accept any less. And I think that has translated now that I'm moving on and like progressing without her, just in that self-assurance and just in that reminder that like it comes from within, and I have the power to write my destiny, and I have the power to create. You know, it's not predetermined. And I think in something as objective as sport, it feels like win or lose, but there's so much more to the story. There's so much more beyond.
What was it like then moving on without her?
Oh, please. I'm still not over it. I'm still not okay. I miss that woman every single day. Like, she can never get rid of me, and she has definitely had to come back and like hold my hand a few times this season. So yeah, been challenging because when you develop such a close personal like relationship with someone, like, you know, she coached me from when I was 16 to 23 in such formative years through a whole pandemic. Like you can't get to know someone much better than that, can you? So yeah, it was always nice to basically be able to communicate without even saying words, and always being on the same page and just always knowing what each other is thinking. So transitioning to a new coach, I have to remind myself, Vwairé, they don't know you like that. You're gonna have to communicate, use your big girl words, put on your big girl pants, and, you know, use words and communicate and let them know who you are and just what's going on in your head. So yeah, it's been difficult, but we're getting there.
And how has your training changed since you've moved into perhaps a more, I want to use the word aggressive training season, I guess, because you are throwing yourself now into something, you have these big goals. I'm assuming you want to go to the Olympics, because every athlete I speak to does, and that requires a hell of a lot of work. I mean, before we even started recording, you told me you've done 2 training sessions this morning.
Yeah.
What does a weekly training week look like for you?
Just a lot, more and more. So I probably get on the water around 7:30, but before that I'm down at 7 stretching, and then we'll have a briefing, then we know what boat we're going in, and we'll do like our big mileage session in the morning, and probably a core session, which involves, we say core, but it is still full body, as everything is.
Thank you for clarifying, by the way, everyone listening.
Yeah, exactly, please. There's no days off. And then probably into another aerobic session. I think, yeah, one thing I actually really didn't realize about rowing is how endurance it is. I was like, oh, okay, no, I'm actually in an endurance sport for real. I can't just rely on power. So yeah, it is a lot of long, steady miles, and then intensity here and there, and just being able to manage myself throughout the week, because the last day of the week we'll usually do like a huge intensity block that's timed and just get numbers, you know. So yeah, making sure that I'm not too silly with my energy, recovering well, and eating lots, and yeah, just sleeping lots. But I think what's mostly changed is just how in tune I have to be with my body, and like how important it is to get it right. I think before, when I was younger and at uni, you can make the mistake here and there and it wouldn't be too costly. But now we're talking things like injuries, and, you know, like how quickly a niggle can become something catastrophic, you know. So just having that awareness, and also reminding myself to check in with my body before each session is so important. That's the biggest difference.
Who taught you that lesson?
Just trial and error, honestly. It's trial and error of pushing myself too hard. I think the first injury I got, I was like, how did I end up here? Oh my goodness, me? Like, I am the strongest woman, how on earth? And when I actually sat down and did some reflecting, I was like, yeah, no, actually sounds about right. Shocked it didn't happen sooner. So yeah, I think that just going through that nasty stage of being injured, and like, oh God, like every athlete's worst nightmare, not being able to do the sport you love, and I mean, having to take days off. Whoa, too far for me. But yeah, I think seeing the damage that I had done to my body was very sobering. And I was like, girl, this stops now. You actually cannot take your body for granted, and you cannot just keep on pushing yourself as if you're a robot. You're a human first. Remember that. So yeah.
How did you get through that stage when you did have that injury?
Lots of tears. Lots of tears and support and hugs from mum, and yeah, just trying to stay positive and trying to remember there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But that, I'll be honest, that was the most difficult thing, even on the best of days. As I said, yeah, not being able to do the sport you love, it feels like, you know, you're on punishment. It feels like you're in a prison of your own body. But yeah, I think I really used that time to reflect, and I was like, there's still a lot of growth and progression that can happen, even if it's not physical. At least it can be mental. You know, like you got yourself in this position, you're going to get yourself out. So how are we going to do it? So just having like real conversations with myself.